Hi, I'm Liz from No Trace. Welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to show you how to sew a very beginner-friendly purse that has adjustable straps. It comes with a pocket in the front because we all need more pockets in our lives. This mini purse is also a great way to put some of your smaller pieces of fabric to good use, so let's jump in. As usual, all of the measurements for the materials that you need are in the description box below this video. I also have a PDF pattern in my shop if you want to get a downloadable pattern that has a whole bunch of variations for this super simple purse. The outside of the bag comes together with 2 pieces of fabric for the pocket and then 2 pieces of fabric for the outside. The pocket fabric is 10.5 inches wide and 10 inches tall, and then the main outer fabric is 10.5 inches wide and 11.5 inches tall. The liner fabric is also 10.5 inches wide and 11.5 inches tall. You'll need scraps of fabric to make the loops for the sides of the bag. You can make them as wide as 2 inches tall and as long as 6 inches long. These 2 pieces are only 1.5 inches tall and about 5 inches wide. You're also going to need a strap for your purse, obviously, and I made this strap. I have a full tutorial on how to make your own strap, but you could also use some ribbon or cotton webbing, and you're probably going to want at least 45 inches of strap for your purse. The very first step is to sew your 2 pieces of pocket fabric with the right sides together. I'm going to just sew along the top edge with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. All right, at the machine here, I am going to just sew along this top edge with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to make sure to back stitch at the beginning and at the end. Now that the pocket pieces are sewn together, I am going to flip the fabric around so that the seam is hidden. And now I'm looking at the right side. I'm working with a solid, so there isn't really a right or wrong. I'm just going to go ahead and press the top edge of the pocket. Now I'm going to make the little loops that are going to hold the strap on the side of the bag, and I am going to sew these 2 scraps of fabric together with the right sides together, and I'm going to sew them with about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now that these are sewn together, I'm going to fold this strip in half, and I'm just going to cut it right along that middle crease. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn these little scraps right side out. You might want a pencil or a chopstick to help you with this little process. Now that they are right side out, I'm going to give them a quick iron, and I'm going to sew each of them with a 1/8 inch top stitch on both sides so that they have a little bit more of a polished look. Now, this top stitching is optional, but it does make your loops look just a little bit fancier. Okay, top stitching is done. Now that the loops are finished, I am going to put the pocket on top of one of my outer pieces of fabric. Again, I'm working with a solid, so there isn't really a right or a wrong, but I want the pocket to be sitting on the right side of the fabric so that it turns out on the outside of the bag. I'm going to fold the loops so that the folded edge is pointing in towards the middle of the bag, and I am going to pin them about 1.25 inch away from the top edge. So I'll just go ahead and get a couple pins out, and they are also on top of the pocket. Now I'll come to this side, find 1.25, and go ahead and pin. Now I'm going to get my other piece of outside fabric, and I want to put it right side to right side so the right side of the fabric is right on top of the pocket in these loops. And I want to line up these edges as nicely as I can. I'm also going to add a little no trace tag to the side of my bag. This, of course, is totally optional, but I do like to add a tag whenever I remember. And if you want to know the Etsy shop where I get my tags from, I am linking to that shop in the description. And I am just going to pin all of these pieces together on all 4 sides. Next, I'm lining up the liner fabric with the right sides together, if there is a right side. And again, I'm going to put pins on all 4 sides. I'm going to go ahead and sew around the 3 sides of my small purse. And I'm going to make sure to backstitch at the beginning and the end. And whenever I sew over the loop, I'm going to reinforce it with 3 rows of stitches so it's super strong. I went ahead and also sewed up the inner fabric, and now I'm going to be marking out the bottom corners with a ruler. I'm going to be drawing a 1-inch square on the seams on all 4 bottom corners. And once those corners have a square drawn on them, I'm just going to cut right along my marks on all 4 corners. And now I'm going to go inside the layers and open up those bottom corners. And I want to make sure that the pocket is on the right side so you can still see the loop and the tag. So my pocket should be over on the left side of the bag. So I want to make sure all this extra pocket fabric is on the left side of the seam. And then I'm just going to sew with a 1/2 inch seam allowance right across this cut that I made. And I'm going to make sure to backstitch at the beginning and at the end. Okay, the first corner is finished. I'm going to repeat this on the other 3 corners. Now that all 4 corners are sewn up, I am going to turn my liner fabric right side out, push out the bottom there, and then I'm going to put my liner fabric into my outer fabric. Make sure I don't put it inside the pocket. And I'm going to take a moment and line up these side seams with each other and pin the 2 layers together at the sides. Now that the sides are pinned, you can kind of shake it out, and I'm going to put another pin in the middle here and flip it around and do 1 more pin right here, and then we are going to sew at the machine. I'm going to sew around this raw edge of the bag with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and I am going to start a couple inches away from one of my side seams, and I'm going to make sure to backstitch. I'm going to go all the way around, but I'm going to stop when I get to right about over here so that I can leave an opening of about 3 or 4 inches in my bag. Okay, I finished that seam all along this top edge. So now I am going to go into the opening that I left, and I'm going to pull the fabric, pull the bag so that I can see the right side of the bag on both sides. So now my bag looks like this. We're almost done. This little purse sews up pretty fast. I'm going to push the liner fabric into the outer fabric, just like that. And then give it a little shake. Then I'm going to iron this top edge at the iron and make sure it's laying nice and flat. And I definitely want to iron the little opening right here and make sure it's lined up and it looks nice and tidy. All right, the top edge is ironed. It's already looking so cute. I really love these colors and I love this shape. Okay, so the last seam is to sew a top stitch all around this top edge. And I'm going to start my top stitch in a less noticeable spot. I'm going to start it near the side on the back of the purse. And I'm just going to take my time and go all the way around with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. The top stitching is finished. We are almost done. The last step is to get the strap and get it into the loops and then tie a knot so it can't slide out of the loops. Now, depending on how large your loop is, you might want a safety pin. You might be able to just cram it through with a chopstick, which is what I'm doing. So there's the first little bit. And then, of course, I want to make sure I don't have any twists in my strap, unless that's your thing. I mean, maybe you like the twisty look, in which case go for it. I'm going to try to keep my strap flat and get this end into this loop. The very last step is to tie a simple knot in the end of each side of the strap. It's finished. So cute, super easy to make. Like I mentioned, if you want a downloadable sewing pattern that has this version of my mini purse as well as a bunch of other variations, just click the link underneath the video in the description box down below.